Well, it's a sad and startling statistic. Did you know that approximately 40 million Americans are living without easy access to fresh and healthy food options? And bringing it closer to home here in Richmond, the population with limited access to full-service supermarkets increased 13.2%. Dr. Michael Norton, Chief Policy Analyst at Reinvestment Fund, is going to shed some light on this in just a few minutes. But first, we say good morning, Michael. Good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
So this is going the wrong way, isn't it? I was thinking maybe it had gotten better because there had been a couple of supermarkets built near neighborhoods that were what they call food islands, desert islands. Yeah. So, but it's actually gone up. It's gotten worse.
Well, there are different ways that people measure access to fresh food, and the USDA's food deserts are one, and our limited supermarket access analysis is another. It provides a little bit more nuance than just access to a grocery store. And we identify places across the country that have inadequate and inequitable access to supermarkets, but also markets that could benefit from access of alternative types of food providers, like smaller format stores or mobile markets that are really tailored to the demand and the cultural preferences of people living in places where there either is not enough population to support a full service store, or it's in a really remote part of the country. And we see those in places in Virginia, both in Richmond and then in some of the more rural parts of the state as well.
We're going to dive into some more details in just a little bit. Michael, thank you for that preview. Certainly an important conversation to have. This affects more than the dinner table. So looking forward to talking with Michael about that. Well, our first guest this morning is the Chief Policy Analyst at Reinvestment Fund. Mission is to build a more equitable food system. Today, we're ready to talk about food insecurity and what that means for the country, and certainly localizing it right here in Richmond.
We got a chance to speak a moment ago. Welcome back, Mr. Norton. I've got a question here. So I mentioned the fact that I thought we had built a couple of grocery stores closer to what we would formally call food deserts. And you said that's not all that there is. There's a lot more nuance to it than that.
That's right. And when you look at the city of Richmond, all of the growth in low access areas that we've observed in the city of Richmond are these places that would be smaller than the geography and population that would support a full service store. And so this is the first time we've really been able to identify these kinds of places across the country, and they necessitate a different kind of response than a traditional supermarket. And so one of the things that we do at Reinvestment Fund is support small businesses and local entrepreneurs developing alternative methods for food access in smaller geographies that are responsive to both the demand in those places. So a lot of these places will have lower incomes oftentimes, and the cultural preferences, particularly in some really diverse parts of the country.
Dr. Norton, we talked a little bit about how this means more than just what's on the dinner table. There are friends watching the show this morning who are in food deserts and have this incredibly limited to no access, and we have other friends watching the show with incredible access. What does food insecurity mean overall to a region?
In a region, it's really about how do you feed the population in the place, right? And making sure that access to fresh foods is readily available and equitably distributed across a city or across a region is really a broader infrastructural problem, and something that can be solved by coordinating assets across a different place that are not just grocery stores, and it's not just the private sector and the public sector and the nonprofit sector, but it's coordinated effort to ensure that each of the people that are living in these places have access to food, because there is enough food in America to feed everybody who is hungry. And so it is more of a logistics and a coordination issue than it is an availability issue.
So the logistics and the ability to get to it, and then there's the financing of it, and how does that happen?
Financing grocery stores is tricky, and operating grocery stores is tricky. USDA's Healthy Food Finance Initiative is really designed to develop innovative solutions that are going to enhance access to fresh food. And Reinvestment Fund manages that initiative for USDA. And there are other community development financial institutions like Reinvestment Fund, which are essentially nonprofit banks. And they use the kind of analyses that we are developing to really hone in on both the places that are going to be well served by the type of capital that we can bring, but then also identifying the small businesses that are ready to do the work. Because we are a bank and other CDFIs are also banks, and the financing comes with a rigorous underwriting process that is informed by rigorous analysis of place and our potential borrowers.
So when you do a study like this and it reveals that 13.2% increase in limited access, then you react and you make this investment to help try to improve the food insecurity. What does the future look like here in Richmond, in our region?
It's going to look not like traditional grocery stores, because the places in Richmond that are underserved and that are inequitably served are not places that are going to support a full service store. And so coming up with creative solutions that meet the local demand and that are also responsive to the cultural preferences of the folks living in those places are going to be the way to succeed. And that can be small format stores, it can be mobile markets, it can be some combination of the two, but it's going to take some creativity that you don't see from traditional supermarket operators.
A couple of generations now have grown up with a supermarket. What I'm hearing from you is this is a market. It's not a supermarket. It's just what that community needs. Did I get even close on that?
That's right. And it's an evolving market, right? The way that we consume fresh food, the way that we access fresh food, the way that it's produced and moved into the cities where most people live is very different than it was 50 years ago. It's very different than it was 20 years ago. And it's going to continue to evolve. And having the financial tools and the analytics to help inform where and how to make these new kinds of opportunities is really where food access is going in a lot of cities across the country.
And Michael, this is happening at every level. As you said, it's not just a private sector situation or public sector situation or even just a nonprofit. We've got some incredible organizations in our community doing so many things. But there may be entrepreneurs watching today who say, yes, I'd like to put a market or a mobile market in our community to help solve this. What's a good way for them to begin that journey, to begin researching how to get into the game, so to speak?
The USDA's Healthy Food Finance Initiative is a really great opportunity that can provide capital and lending financing for expanding innovative approaches to local grocery stores. There are other CDFIs like Reinvestment Fund across the country that work really hands-on with small businesses to help them develop their business plans, identify the best locations for their work, and support them over the course of their business operation to really get their places stood up. And we've seen some of this really interesting new markets tax credit deals in Richmond recently that have been designed specifically to combine food access with housing and also co-located with federally qualified healthcare center. And so there are different ways of figuring out, right, how to get food access spots into cities, along with the other kinds of amenities that people need to live their lives.
All right, very informative. Thank you, Dr. Norton. Appreciate all of this great information today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. A lot to consider. And if you'd like more information, we'll have a link, virginiathismorning.com. It'll be up later today. You can find more information there. Stay with us. We'll be right back.